The Braves remain the busiest team in baseball this winter, and they checked off a huge box on their offseason shopping list. We're going to talk all about that on this edition of BPTV. Make sure you like and subscribe because we've got everything covered here when it comes to Braves talk right here on Battery Power. Happy New Year and welcome to 2024. I'm Grant McCauley alongside Chris Willis. The Braves, they finally found that starting pitcher that they very much wanted when this winter began, and it's all-star lefty Chris Sale, who was acquired in a trade with the Boston Red Sox in exchange for Vaughn Grissom. Now, there were cash considerations in this trade and even more money after Sale signed a new contract with Atlanta. We're going to get into all of that in just a minute. But, Chris, I think we're all waiting for this domino to fall. Another starting pitcher in the rotation. I don't think, however, many people had Chris Sale on their bingo card.
No, you're right. It kind of came out of nowhere, and that's kind of what we've come to expect from Alex Anthopoulos at times. But you and I talked about it. It just really felt like they needed to add a starter. Maybe they would at the start of the offseason, they would have liked to add a guy that could eat a little more innings or whatever. But with all things considered, I really like the Sale addition, and I think there's a lot of upside if they can keep him healthy.
There certainly is. We're going to talk a lot about the upside, the health factor for Chris Sale, both of those big stories around this acquisition. The Braves, though, they gave Sale a brand new contract on Thursday, 2 years, $38 million that deal, $16 million for 2024, $22 million for next season for 2025, plus a club option of $18 million for 2026. That overwrites the $27.5 million that he was due under his previous contract that he signed with the Boston Red Sox. That was his original 2024 salary. Boston also kicked in $17 million in cash considerations. The other $10 million of that, or nearly the entire rest of that contract, was deferred until 2039. Some folks might be asking, Chris, why now for a new contract? But I really think the Braves, they probably had this in mind all along. Chris, they basically took the money out of the future expenses with the deferment. They cashed it in now while keeping Sale for up to 2 years, guaranteed, maybe 3 seasons if they exercise that option. And it's safe to say that the Braves are betting big on Chris Sale to help them in rotation beyond just this 1-year rental. But they were able to kind of hedge their bets and take what I think is a calculated risk.
I agree, and also, with the new deal, I'm pretty sure that it lowered their competitive balance tax number for 2024, which gives them a little bit more wiggle room as they round out the roster, before we head into spring training. So, but yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Chris Sale, he talked yesterday about the Braves guaranteeing that 2025 season. That was big for him. I think it shows just how much confidence they have in him that he can stay healthy and that he does still have something left in the tank. I think it's notable. I mean, he's had a lot of injuries over the time, but the one thing that's been notable is when he has pitched well. So I think that's there's reason for confidence there, and he was healthy entering the off season, and is really excited. It sounded like to get started.
Yeah, and we're going to let you hear from Chris Sale here in just a moment. But as I look at his contract, I mean, he was already owed that $10 million. A lot of people might look at it as, well, deferred money. They didn't have to worry about it right now. They could figure it out in 15 years. But I don't really feel like the Braves were necessarily thinking that was, what all they wanted to do with acquiring Chris Sale. So if you really think about it, I mean, they were on the hook for the $10 million eventually. So why not bring it into right now, add another, $11, $12 million, guarantee yourself a couple of years of Chris Sale, who, as you just pointed out, I mean, if he's healthy, they're not getting this deal done after a good year. I think that's important to note as well. As for what the motivations might have been for the Braves to go ahead and do that new contract at this moment. But as I mentioned, we're going to hear from Chris Sale on what this new deal means for him and his family as he starts his new chapter in Atlanta. Here's the Braves' new lefty.
That's great. I definitely appreciate that. They put their faith and trust in me, and that obviously makes me feel confident going forward and gives me a boost, not only going through spring training, but going through the year. It also allows me to feel a little bit more comfortable, right? Like I'm going to be here for a couple of years, so I can kind of, get settled in and not really bounce around. I'm married, have three sons, so, one and dones aren't really too good for us.
Chris, he laid it all out there. At 35 years old, I mean, it makes a ton of sense to me. He goes to a team that gives him a chance to win. That's another motivator to stay around. And he gets to pitch close to home and focus on family. All of those seem like pretty good things for Chris Sale and, by proxy, for the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, no doubt. And and I thought I liked how genuine he seemed in that whole interview yesterday. just talking about approving the trade and how he wanted to, he was very happy with the Red Sox, but how he had signed that big deal and then got hurt and kind of felt, you could tell that bothered him, that part
Mhm.
of it. He's a really proud guy. And, he talked about waiving his no trade, to come to Atlanta with, he wanted to do right by the Red Sox if that was the deal they wanted to make. So, I think I came away really impressed, and and I thought he was really candid in how his shoulders feeling,
Mhm.
how he's throwing the baseball, and how he said this was his first normal off season in several seasons. So I think with everything that you heard yesterday, you can kind of understand where the Braves are coming from here, and they think that maybe this is going to be another significant addition to the rotation.
Yeah, and they hope that it will be. And obviously, by giving him a new contract, they're believing and betting in Chris Sale that he's going to be able to do that. And that is of value to a player to know that, hey, this is not just a 1 year rental. It's not that he's going to have to figure out a situation. And it's not like he's just looking at 1 year's salary and thinking, all right, well, I just got to guarantee myself as much as I can get in 1 year. This is a chance for stability for him. It's a chance for stability in the Braves rotation. As you mentioned, he did have to waive his no trade. It was a 10-5 rights that players get with 10 years of service, 5 with the same team. And you know that those last 5 years in Boston, those were not what Chris Sale wanted. He was hoping to be a big part of big things with the Red Sox. I mean, they won a World Series with Chris Sale, don't get me wrong. But after he signed the extension, things did not go the way that he wanted it to. And the big deal, of course, for Chris Sale is being healthy. He has battled a lot of injuries over the past 5 years. When it comes to 2024, he believes he's coming in a much better place than he's been in quite some time.
This is the first time in quite a while I've been able to have a normal off season. I've been doing a lot of shoulder program, a lot of long tossing, just a lot of baseball activity, things that I know that are going to prepare me for not only getting through spring training, but getting through the season and beyond. I need reps. It's the one thing I wasn't able to do for a long time was just play catch. And I just had to get my arm in throwing shape. And I've been able to do that this off season. Luckily the Braves facility isn't too far from my house in Florida. So I actually came up here today, played some long toss, threw a bullpen, and we're all systems go. So I'm excited for that.
So Chris Sale already getting familiar with Cool Today Park, the spring home of the Atlanta Braves, and he made 20 starts last year for the first time, Chris, since 2019. The strikeout numbers, those were still there. There have been what I'll call some fluky injuries. I know he's had some major ones, but there's also been some random things that cost him some time in recent years. But his health, it does seem to be trending in the right direction. Obviously, the Braves were motivated to make this deal. And I think that this health and what Chris Sale just said there, that's the most important and encouraging thing that we heard as far as how he's trending heading towards spring training.
Yeah, and I mean, the biggest thing I came out of it, he's not coming in thinking, "Hey, I'm just going to be able to give you guys 100 innings." He's coming in wanting to pitch every fifth day, and that
Right.
was my biggest takeaway from him. A lot of veterans had this many injuries. They're probably just trying to ride that contract out. But I didn't get that sense with him. I think he's thinking, and obviously he got a new contract with the Braves yesterday. But I think he's thinking, these last 4 or 5, however long years of his career, he wants to be effective. He wants to win. He sees a good opportunity with the Braves, obviously, and like I said, if the Braves have done a good job keeping guys healthy, giving them extra days, between starts and really monitoring their progress. So, I think it can work. I mean, there's some risk with it, obviously,
Mhm.
but again, when you look at the pitching market as a whole, I mean, you're gonna have to spend a lot of money to try to find that perfect guy, and maybe Chris Sale is going to be a way around that a little bit.
There were a lot of what I would call imperfect fits, and some of them have signed for significant money over the course of the offseason. So nothing about Chris Sale's new deal is outside of those parameters. But the Braves got $17 million from the Red Sox to go ahead and get themselves started in this 2 year contract, plus the option year that might be a thing for Chris Sale if he pitches well in these 2 years of this new contract. And when you look at what the Braves did over the course of the offseason as well, they strengthened this bullpen. So somebody like Sale, he could be a 5 or 6 inning pitcher. Nobody's asking him to go out and throw a bunch of complete games or throw 220 innings. I think if he's just able to start every fifth day, like you talked about, Chris, that's going to be, I think, exactly what the Braves are looking for. Because if he's healthy, when he's healthy, he's still able to show the things that he has shown throughout the course of his career. It may not be the vintage that it was 5, 6, 7 years ago, but I think it has more than enough tread on the tire to give the Braves what they were looking for to fortify their rotation, and keeping in mind that they do have some depth behind him now, that you don't have to worry about filling an entire spot in the rotation, because now you do have a veteran, somebody with some upside, somebody that's done it before As far as that health is concerned, Chris Sale also discussed the focus for his throwing program this winter and what he's working on in the lead up to spring training.
Like I said, I just needed reps. I need to the two things I need to do the most is stay on top of my shoulder program and throw. Those were the two really important things for me coming into the offseason, was really getting some long toss in to get my arm in throwing shape, and staying on top of my shoulder program to keep it strong. Even that is kind of a weird injury that you don't see it a whole lot. Since then, knock on wood, I haven't had any residual effects from that. So, like I said, I've just been enjoying a healthy off season, a normal off season, and baseball. It's I'm having fun doing this stuff again, and I'm enjoying that.
Well, you certainly want to be having some fun while you're out there. You also would like to be part of a winning team and a good rotation. And the Braves, they can check those couple of boxes as well. Braves are putting Sale into a rotation that includes Max Fried, Spencer Strider, and Charlie Morton, with a lot of options for that fifth spot, led, of course, by Bryce Elder. But here's Chris Sale sizing up the Braves rotation that he's going to be joining.
I got to talk to Charlie about that fountain of youth he's sipping, because he's figured out a way to stay strong throughout. And Strider's one of the best pitchers in the game, and Max is one of the best lefties in the game. I mean, we're very excited to hop on this staff and feed off each other and compete, for another division and hopefully another world championship.
Well, Chris, let me ask it this way. How much more formidable does the Braves rotation have a chance to be with Sale, even at this stage of his career, than it was as we were trying to figure out what the final answer might be for this rotation even a week ago?
Oh, I think it's I think it's big. I think this is a big addition, especially if they can keep him upright, into the postseason. I mean, I kind of threw out, if he can throw between 120, 140 innings in the regular season, that's fine, as long as he's healthy for the postseason. Because I mean, he's a postseason type pitcher. He's still got good stuff, still got the strikeout rate. And I think he's out to really prove that he's not finished, because I
Right.
think a lot of people have written him off, with all the injuries he's went through recently. So I think it's big, and again, it just pushes Elder. I mean, Elder made a lot of 177 innings last year, and now if you can drop him to the fifth spot, or if Reynaldo Lopez wins that spot and Elder opens in Gwinnett, I mean, that's just how much deeper your rotation is. So I think it's a big addition. We felt like they needed to add a starting pitcher just for that reason, because if you're suddenly, if you go into the season, you're relying on Elder and Lopez to fill two spots in that rotation. I mean, it's not a bad situation, but again, at the same time, you're a little concerned about it. So, I just feel like this was the type of move they needed to make, and they were able to get it done.
Yeah, it looks a little bit different with Chris Sale as opposed to Bryce Elder. I know that he was able to show you a lot last year, but the way he closed the season, it raised some questions about, how is he going to take that next step? How is he going to overcome some of that adversity that he faced in logging that career high in innings? Because remember, he also started in AAA Gwinnett and had some work down there. By the time he got to the postseason, far and away the most innings that Bryce Elder had ever thrown in his career. And I think that one of the reasons that you look at what the Braves did in this offseason wasn't that they don't believe in a guy like Bryce Elder to close out the rotation to finish it out, but I think they felt like they needed one more formidable postseason pitcher, and that's something that Alex Anthopoulos continued to talk about. And I've had MLB Network on, as I'm sure we all have, just watching the hot stove, seeing what unfolds, and they were running through this video highlight of Chris Sale blowing away Bryce Harper, and you couldn't help but think, well, that might be something that the Braves would like to see in October if they're able to match up somebody like Chris Sale with a formidable Phillies lineup that they've had to deal with and had a lot of trouble with the past couple of Octobers. Now, Chris, I don't know that we ever get through a press conference for a new Brave, or at least it doesn't happen too often without that player being asked about his ties to Atlanta and the Braves in general. And with Sale being a Florida kid, he had a chance to watch this team growing up. And I thought that Sale had a great story about his childhood and also how he views this team that he's joining.
My first autograph I got was from Chipper Jones. I went to a camp, got a picture with him. I think I was like 12 years old, 13 years old. Got a picture with him. He signed a baseball for us, and it was great. And obviously, like I said, growing up in the South, this was kind of the team down here, and rich in history. You look at some of the players that have come through this organization. Even the players that are on this roster now. It's exciting. It's got a buzz. It's this A represents something, and great fan base, beautiful ballpark. A lot of things that were very appetizing, obviously, to make this thing come true.
Well, Chris Sale used the word exciting or some version of it about 15 times in that presser. So I'd say he's pretty excited about being an Atlanta Brave. He's already at the spring training complex, throwing bullpens, feeling healthy, and getting ready to go for spring training and beyond. So as we look at this now, big picture, Alex Anthopoulos has addressed the areas we thought that Atlanta needed to this winter. The bullpen has been reinforced, as we talked about. Jared Kelenic is a new left fielder. Now Chris Sale joins the rotation, and Atlanta has a lot of space on its 40-man roster. But moving forward, that third luxury tax threshold, they're keeping an eye on that. Chris, you mentioned the competitive balance tax and what the Braves' new deal with Chris Sale could help them out a little bit with that. But what in your mind is left for Anthopoulos to do going forward this winter? Adding that righty hitting outfielder, I would think, finishing off the bench, obviously, but the list isn't very long now.
No, you're at this point. I think a right-handed outfielder is probably the top priority now, just to kind of pair that you could pair with Jerry Kelenic out there if you wanted, maybe not a strict platoon, but if you want to set him against some tough lefties, having that option, if that guy can play, if he could possibly play center too, that would be huge. I think about just the exact role that Kevin Pillar had last year, and I wouldn't be surprised if we don't hear Kevin Pillar's name pop up. We get a little closer to spring training, but there's a lot of outfielders out there. Just rounding out the bench. I mean, when you look at it, I know Alex's favorite thing though is they, they're always looking for ways to improve the club. So I mean, if something materializes, I wouldn't be shocked at all. If we got something else, that we're not expecting. But at this point, when you look at the roster top to bottom, they've only got 11 position players on the 40-man roster. They'll have 13 at least when opening day gets here. So, there's still work to be done, and there's a lot of flexibility with the 40-man. So, I think we're going to see a lot of waiver pickups. We may see another free agent signing or two, and it'll be showtime in Northport soon.
Yeah, always looking, always listening. And as we learned just before the new year, expect the unexpected, because Chris Sale, again, I don't think that was a name that had been linked to the Braves really at any point since sometime in the middle to latter end of the rebuild. So it had been a hot minute. But now Chris Sale finds himself in a pretty nice place, and the Braves believe that they've found themselves a lefty that can help out the starting rotation and help this team not only get to October, but get all the way through October and be that last team standing. That's going to do it for this edition of BPTV. Thanks, as always, for riding along with us. We are just over a month away from pitchers and catchers reporting to spring training February 14th. Go ahead and mark your calendars there. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe right here to the Battery Powered channel, and we will catch you next time, Braves Country.